Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel. It's a great honor for me to speak alongside Alexander and Dimitris, both of whom have had much longer and more distinguished careers than myself, so I apologize that you're stuck with me. Today, it seems that whenever we turn on the television or open up a news site on our phones, we're met with ever-worsening images and stories about crises around the world: armed conflict, mass displacement, climate emergencies, famine. The list goes on and on. There are currently more armed conflicts in the world today than at any time since the Second World War. And there are more refugees and internally displaced than any time in history. When confronted with this reality, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel helpless, as though these challenges are insurmountable. Over the years, I've spent time both in government and working with humanitarian organizations and civil society in crisis settings. I've seen the worst of humanity, but also seen the best of humanity. And out of this, I've come to believe that there are ways in which we can start to reverse this trend and to promote steps which can achieve a sustainable, peaceful, and equitable world. I'd like to offer just 3 recommendations for consideration. The first is to address root causes. Too often, governments end up in a situation where they're being reactive rather than proactive. How many billions of euros are spent every year in support of refugee populations or to prevent them from traveling, instead of addressing why they were forced to leave in the first place and what is preventing them from returning home? How many billions, even trillions, are spent on weapons which fuel armed conflict? But what kind of investment are we making in peace and in diplomacy? Now, the counter-argument will be that there have been many efforts to address root causes, but some of these scenarios are simply too difficult to solve. That's a fair point. But we should always ask ourselves, have we tried everything? Have we left any stone unturned? Have we spared no expense in seeking peace and stability? Climate change is a great example of the positive results which can come when the international community and the private sector come together in innovative ways. In addition to these efforts, though, now there's a need to be proactive in addressing climate migration. Over the next several decades, climate change will be the #1 driver of migration, far surpassing the numbers we see today. If governments and the private sector can come together now to proactively address this through the construction of new communities outside of the areas susceptible to climate change, along with investing in new technologies, we can mitigate the worst effects and reduce the number of individuals forced to flee their homes. My second point is to empower young people. This is one of the most glaring gaps in global leadership today, both in government and the private sector. Look around the room in any government cabinet meeting, parliamentary debate, or corporate board of directors meeting. How many of those in leadership are young people? Few, if any. How can we make decisions which will primarily impact future generations without giving them a seat at the table? This widespread lack of inclusion of young people is one of the primary drivers of the cynicism we see from them and their lack of faith in institutions and global governance. For all of their shortcomings, and there are many, young people bring tremendous gifts and talents, in addition to perspectives which are essential to incorporate into decision-making processes. If we want to enhance the global system for current and future generations, we must include younger generations, listen to their ideas and concerns, learn from one another. My third and final recommendation is the simplest. Listen. All too often, we fail to do the easiest thing of all, which is to listen. I've been guilty of this myself. Without listening to a broad range of ideas, particularly from the individuals impacted by the problems we're seeking to address, we risk falling into the trap of imposing solutions, many of which then won't work as a result. That's where listening becomes essential. Listen so that we might better understand the challenges faced by those individuals we're trying to help. Listen so that we ourselves can learn to communicate more effectively. And listen so that our own beliefs and understanding can be shaped by many different perspectives, not just what we want to hear. We must always strive never to lose our capacity to listen and to ensure that we always have empathy for our fellow humans. Address root causes, empower young people, and listen. These aren't impossible steps, nor are they a perfect solution, but rather at a time when inequality and instability are rising, as well as emergencies related to climate and migration, we should all consider tangible, innovative steps to address the many ongoing challenges around the world and to bring us closer to a more sustainable, peaceful, and equitable world. Thank you.